Hi, I'm Justin Smith, and you're on the record with the News Reporter. Our guest today is Columbus County School Superintendent Eddie Beck. Eddie, I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. It's an honor and a privilege.
So we know that this is a busy time. We're recording this on Thursday, the 21st, and classes begin Monday for Columbus County Schools. Just give us a little peek behind the curtain. What's going on right now on your campuses as everybody's getting ready?
So, of course, everyone is getting ready for the return of students. This week in particular is always one of the busiest weeks we have in education. You know, we welcome teachers back on Monday. We had our convocation this week, so that was a highlight. We did it virtually, so we did a little bit differently this year because of our Infinite Campus training, which took up an entire day. So the state switched from Power School to Infinite Campus, and that required a lot of additional PD to get everyone trained on that new platform. So, and
this is a platform that helps keep up with student data?
It is. Okay. It's our data platform, keeps up with grades, absences, demographics, basically all of the data on the students. So that was a massive undertaking. Ms. Carter and the central office personnel have done an exceptional job getting that rolled out. But that did take a lot of time to make happen. So we did decide to do the convocation virtually, but it was a success. And it also allowed teachers to have some available time to work in their classrooms. Tonight, I'll be busy visiting schools for all of the open house ceremonies that we have scheduled. All the central office personnel will be distributed throughout the county because we'll try to have representation at each school. Those will kick off today around 4 and probably end somewhere around 7:30 tonight. So yes, this week is extremely busy.
Busy time. So you had convocation, you mentioned that, and that's with the faculty and the staff. What message did you want them to leave that event with? In other words, what are really some of the priorities that you want them to keep in mind in this new school year?
So first and foremost, leadership. You know, it just doesn't have to start at the top or with the principal. You know, you can have peer leaders. So we want to really lean on and develop our peer leaders, meaning teachers all the way to custodians. We want leaders in the building.
So peer leaders meaning teachers supporting each other.
That is correct.
Is that essentially what
Yes.
you're talking about?
You know, if you have an effective teacher, we want that teacher to share ideas, help mentor other teachers, and basically help everyone grow. That's the first thing that we focused on. We think it is really going to be our year to shine. Now, of course, they've not released the data yet. They'll release it, I think, September the 3rd.
And this is the state?
The state.
Okay.
The state. So we feel really confident that those test results are going to come back fairly positive. We think we made some significant gains last year, and we really think that this is our year to soar. We think we're going to really show a lot of progress this year. So that was another thing that I talked about, and just the fact that, you know, we have all of the training. We have that under our belt because, you know, we implemented the new curriculum last year. So a lot of training went along with that. So now we have the knowledge base. Now we just need to increase the rigor in the classroom and make sure that students are exposed to, you know, high impact practices and that they receive good quality instruction. We want that across the board. We want all students to receive the quality of instruction that they need to help them move individually from the top to the bottom. So that was basically the focus of my speech. And again, at the end, my main thing is we've got to start strong, we got to stay strong, and we got to finish strong.
So your Board of Education has also been busy this summer,
very much so.
You know, developing and tweaking some policies for the new school year. And so I want to go through some of those and ask you about what difference they're going to make. Okay. And so one that people are talking about, not just in Columbus County, but I think nationwide, is just cell phones. Okay. And the distraction and the challenges associated with cell phones. So will you tell us what Columbus County schools had been seeing, let's say last school year, for instance? What types of challenges did cell phones present?
So let's back up a little bit even further than that. So initially, you know, Columbus County School was not a one-to-one district.
And explain what that means.
Okay, one-to-one means that each student is assigned a piece of technology, in this case, a Chromebook. Okay, so we're now a one-to-one district, so we provide the student with the technology.
Right, and so people who might not be familiar, a Chromebook is essentially a laptop.
That is correct.
So the school district provides every student with a laptop.
That is correct.
Okay.
And they use that to access the curriculum or do any research that they may need to do, but we provide that. Where in the past, we did not provide that. So, you know, cell phones, tablets, in the beginning, when they first came on stage, you know, they were a viable tool. They were a great resource to help students with their instructional practices, which is, you know, no longer needed because we provide that technology. So you're absolutely right. With House Bill 959 being passed, you know, the board has been active, and of course we're going to follow the law.
And the law basically said, right, school systems need to come up with a plan for how they're going to eliminate student use of cell phones in the classroom, right?
Or any other devices, accessories, yes, from bell to bell.
Right.
So some of the things, cell phones, you know, they have become a distraction when it's relating to, you know, the classroom environment. You know, we're constantly seeing students on the phone during class. We have policies, procedures in place, but, you know, oftentimes, hopefully they work, sometimes they do not. But, you know, just that distraction of always wanting to check your cell phone and, you know, pull up social media, whatever the case may be. We had seen a lot of that. And then about midway through the year, when we really started discussing cell phones and technology and what we were planning to do as a system, you know, I talked to parents. I have a parent advisory council, so I got their input. I talked to students with my student advisory council. I talked to the principals, also talked to the board. And, you know, everyone was pretty much, the consensus was that, yes, cell phones pose a problem. Now, you would think that students would be the last ones to say, yeah, cell phones are a problem. They distract me from, you know, paying attention during class. But I was really impressed with our students and their responses. They agreed. They said, yes, you know, something needs to be done about cell phones because they do distract us from our instruction. But not only that, you know, they're also utilized, and we address all these issues accordingly. But, you know, for example, bullying on social media. You know, can we curtail that or end that practice? Probably not, but we can prevent it from occurring during the school day. So it was really refreshing to hear that from the students. So, you know, after doing all of that, basically unofficial surveying of everyone's mindset, we decided that yes, we probably needed to move forward with, you know, some kind of new policy to address cell phones and what we're witnessing because of not only, you know, the distraction but being used inappropriately. Let's just say there's, you know, a fight in a school, you know, they video the fight.
Probably also used in cheating sometimes.
AI in particular, AI definitely. So we met, we looked at neighboring districts. Chatham County already had a cell phone policy in place. They were using Yonder pouches, so I met with that superintendent at a superintendent's meeting, had a lengthy conversation with him. We also looked at Horry County's new policy. They just implemented a very similar policy, but when the governor, you know, signed House Bill 959, that pretty much, you know, made it law, so that made our jobs a lot easier.
Right. So essentially, Columbus County Schools, y'all were already having the conversation about cell phones. You were already kind of going down that path.
Correct.
And then this summer, that legislation got passed saying, basically not making it an option, saying, okay, school districts, y'all have got to come up with a plan.
That is correct. It is now law. You have got to develop a policy.
Yeah.
So we developed a policy, and students will not be allowed to use cell phones bell to bell. Now, it's not that, you know, we're trying to place any hardship on anyone. Let's take a student that may have diabetes, for example. If there's any type of medical situation that they need a cell phone, they will be allowed to use that cell phone. Or if there's an emergency situation in particular, the administrator does have the flexibility to allow that child to use the cell phone. Also with instruction, now again, we provide the technology, so this should be an exception and not a rule. There is, part of that policy that states that they can use a cell phone during an instructional day if it is approved by the administrator. But since we provide, students with the technology, that will probably not happen very often.
Okay. And so tell me if I've got my timeline wrong here, but so I think Columbus County Schools, y'all decided several months ago to do these yonder pouches for the high schools where the
Correct.
Students are going to have to put their device, kind of lock it into this pouch. But then after that is when the board adopted the policy saying no cell phones bell to bell. So are the yonder pouches, are those still a need? Are y'all still planning to use those in the high schools?
Yes, so our policy basically states that any student that is on a high school campus will be required to use a yonder pouch. Okay, so we had practices in schools already. For example, a lot of high school teachers would take up the cell phones at the beginning of the class period and place them in pockets that were hanging behind the door. So they were not being allowed to use them, last year. So we researched, Dr. Piggott was instrumental in that. She's our student support services coordinator. She came to me with the idea of the yonder pouches. So we reached out to some districts that had tried the yonder pouches, and they've seen positive results. Hoke County was one in particular that did some piloting of the yonder pouches last year, so we decided to do that with all of our high school campuses. So again, the policy basically states that any student that is on a high school campus has to place their cell phone and any accessories into a yonder pouch. And are you familiar with how those work? I mean, would you like me for me to
Yeah,
explain that?
explain that to people.
Okay, so it is a pouch. It is neoprene. It will be issued to each student. It is property of the district. So you basically turn your cell phone off, place it in the pouch. If you have earbuds, you place those in the pouch, smartwatch, any other accessory, you place in the pouch. And it has a pin, so you close the flap and the pin locks. So the only way to open it is with a proprietary magnet that is provided by the Yonder Pouch organization. So once it's locked, it can only be unlocked with that magnet. So at the end of the day, when they leave campus, they will simply walk by a magnet, whether it's a handheld magnet, a lockbox magnet that's placed on the outside of the school, or if it is one that is mobile, there's 3 different types. They'll just walk by that magnet, they'll pop the pouch on to the center of the magnet, and it will release the pouch. But the students will keep their cell phones in their possession, or cell phone and accessories. They'll keep those in their possession during the entire day.
Okay, so they'll have the pouch with them, but they just won't be able to get into the pouch.
Correct.
Okay.
Now,
So-
if they have a medical need, they will also have a pouch, but it will be a Velcro pouch, and then they would more than likely have a medical plan that would address their need to use a cell phone. And at that point in time, we would most certainly allow them to do that.
I gotcha. So I cannot imagine putting my phone in a pouch and not being able to get to it. But I understand the logic of that. Do you think that there may be students who are like me and cannot imagine that? Are you afraid? Is there some anxiety about just dealing with children who truly may be addicted in some way to a device?
To answer your question, yes, I think there will be students that, struggle with that. I think there will probably be some parents that struggle with that. I've received mixed reviews since the policy was, adopted by the board. But for the most part, it's been positive comments, very few negative, but there has been some concerns, and we've addressed those. Yes, I think on the front end, students are going to struggle. During the Yonder Pouch training, the way it was explained to us is Yes, at the beginning, you're going to probably have some hardships. When you implement any new policy or any new idea, you always are going to have some bumps in the road. But in this case, during that training, because they will consistently assist our schools with that implementation process. So during that time, the representative said, if you notice from the front, very beginning, when we implemented yonder pouches, yes, there were some issues. But by about Christmas, said it was amazing to see the transformation of the climate and culture of the schools that are using yonder pouches.
Yeah.
So it was a much more positive environment. Students really need to learn how to socialize again. I mean, we see it every day. You go into restaurants and, you know, you see people on their cell phones, not even communicating. Well, that's typically what you will see if you walk into one of our cafeterias. I think socialization definitely will be improved dramatically, and I think your basic soft skills will also improve. And those are things, you know, a student this day and age, they've always had technology, whereas we didn't always have that available. So they don't even know what life is without technology. So I really think it will help them in the long run with definitely socialization skills and just being able to talk to people and relate to people on a personal level.
So the cell phone policy, that was one of the big items that, you know, we reported at the News Reporter, got a lot of attention. Another one was about absenteeism. Mm-hmm. Will you talk about the issues that y'all have seen with children just not showing up for school? And one question that I have, and you might not know the answer to this, but when did it become allowable in terms of from a parent or a guardian for them just not to make their kids go to school? Why is that?
If I could answer that question, I could solve the absenteeism issue. But I can say that COVID and the pandemic is when you started to really see a shift. So currently, 25% of the public school students in the state of North Carolina are labeled as chronically absent, which means they were missing more than 10% of the allotted days for their school calendar. It's not acceptable. First and foremost, I would encourage every parent to make sure that their son or daughter is in school. We want them in school. Unfortunately, sometimes they don't have, or they don't place education as a priority maybe. They want what's best for their child. Of course, everyone does. So we have to follow state law. After 3 absences, you know, we make contact. After 6 absences and 10 absences, you know, we send out letters. We have meetings. And then at that point, it's basically turned over to the principal, the social worker, the counselor, and then ultimately winds up in the court system. We try very hard to work with every single parent and all issues. I mean, there's no one situation that's always going to fit every situation that you deal with. So we deal with it on an individual basis, but we do sometimes have to rely on the court to put some meat behind the policy. And Judge Chandler, he has been wonderful to work with. We have seen some progress. Last year, one of my main goals that I presented to the board, because I knew, you know, we had a problem with chronic absenteeism. Well, if students are not in school, they cannot learn. So that was one of my main goals. So for the entire year, we focused on our attendance data, making sure, you know, when they do their calls that go out on Sunday afternoons, the principals, who I'm referring to, when they do their calls, you know, encourage parents to, you know, make sure your child's in school. Make sure that, you know, you do not check them out on a regular basis, or they're not constantly tardy. And we spent an entire year focusing on that. And I'm very proud to say that we decreased our student absenteeism rate by 9.57%. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a lot when you're talking about over 5,200 students. We went from a chronic absenteeism rate of 32.36 from 41.93 to 32.36. So over a 9% decrease, 9 points. And we're proud of that, and we want to continue that work. But we really want our students in the classroom so they can learn. I want every student to have an opportunity at education and to receive the same type of education that I was fortunate enough to receive. And if we need to work with parents, we will work with parents. We're not out to get anyone. We don't want to place any hardships on anyone. But at the end of the day, we're held accountable, and we want to make sure that we hold parents accountable and make sure that the students are in class.
And so to that point, the policy that the board approved last month said, correct me if I'm wrong, students at any grade level whose unexcused absences exceed 10% of the year may now have to repeat a grade. Is that right?
That is correct. So, and we probably do not have enough time in the day to discuss this in length.
Okay.
So I'll give you the Cliff Note version.
Yes.
So the state board did pass, or is in the process of finalizing, a policy that will pretty much prevent us from using the code FF, which is basically failing a student strictly based on attendance. We will know more after the September state board meeting. I have talked with the North Carolina State Board Association attorney. And just to clarify that, so we are a member of the North Carolina State Board Association. So they follow the law, they have attorneys. Any policy that needs updating, they send us updates on a regular basis. You've probably seen us update policies during board meetings. Those come from the North Carolina State Board Association. So when it comes to absenteeism, we will more than likely, if everything moves forward as we expect, we will probably have to change that part of the policy. Would not be surprised if that's the case. We'll know after they meet in September. But yes, currently, our board is really behind us. They want what's best for every student. They are very supportive, but they also understand, as well as I hope everyone else understands, that sometimes, we are, and we have to be the parents. Because unfortunately in some situations you may not have that parental support. So, you have to hold people accountable. If we allow students to miss 30, 40, 50 days in a year, what are we teaching that student? When they leave high school, when they go into the workforce, is their employer going to allow them to miss 30, 40, 50 days? We want to set students up for success, not failure.
Let's switch gears to talking about teachers.
Okay.
What does your personnel situation look like right now coming into this new school year? Do you have many vacancies, and if so, are they in particular areas?
So math teachers are very difficult to find, so that is one area that we are really struggling with. And right now, we have a board meeting scheduled Friday, and it's strictly for personnel. We are in a better place this year with our teachers as far as vacancies than we were last year at this time. We still have several, probably 12 last time I checked, but that also could change on a daily basis.
Right. By the time people watch this, hopefully it'll be fewer than 12.
Hopefully by the time people watch this, we will have filled all of our positions. If not, we have other options available. But yes, we're struggling to find and retain qualified teachers. What we're having to do, as you well know, is we're having to basically grow our own. We have a lot of teachers that come in that maybe, well, they didn't go through an educational program, but they have a 4-year degree. So we work with them, we get them trained, and we try to grow them into great teachers. And it's typically your Columbus County natives that stick with us and become great teachers. So yes, that's a struggle, and math is definitely one of the most needed areas that we currently have.
So we're approaching about 25 minutes here, so time flies. So I want to be respectful of your time.
Yes, sir.
And I've been asking you largely about some challenges, but I want to end on a bright note and just give you an opportunity maybe to talk about an initiative that maybe you're particularly excited about, or just maybe a success story that people don't know as much about as you wish they did.
So, you know, this will be my second year as superintendent. So, you know, last year we replaced our curriculum director, our HR director, and our assistant superintendent. And I can honestly say that we had an excellent year this past year, but I'm probably the proudest of the implementation of our new curriculum and the work that has gone into improving our instructional practices in each classroom across this district. Ms. Laura Hunter is our curriculum director. Her ladies, our lead teachers, they've worked exceptionally hard, and I am seeing the results of that hard work every day. And I honestly think that this year will be one of our best years.
Let's hope so.
Yes,
Columbus
sir.
County Schools Superintendent Eddie Beck, thank you
Thank you,
for
and
being here.
I appreciate it, Mr.
Thank
Smith.
you. Thank you for tuning in, and you can watch past episodes of On the Record on our website, nrcolumbus.com.